everybody. My name's Lee Henderson. I am the Managing Director of Teatro Luna West. My pronouns are she, her. And welcome to La Hora del Mitote. As you hopefully know, we're here every Friday at 7 p.m. talking to different artists and activists and community members and taking your questions for them. One of the really nice things for Teatro Luna West that has come out of this pandemic is that it's given us an impetus to connect more with some of our colleagues at other theater companies around the country who also serve Latinx communities or other communities of color. And so I am super happy to be here today with Christina and Alex from Teatro Luna West. And Teatro Luna is an ensemble of Latinx and women of color artists, organizers, scholars, agitators, creatives, teatristas, dreamers, and thinkers who collaboratively create original performances and produce multi-genre events towards a social justice purpose. And as always, we love this to be an interactive conversation with all of you who are watching out there. So please do use that chat on Facebook or YouTube to add your own comments or to ask our guests questions or just to say hi, because we love to hear from you. So Alexandra and Christina, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We're really excited to have you. And I'm going to start by just asking you to introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at Teatro Luna, but also anything you'd like us to know about just you as an artist or as an individual.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. First of all, Christina, you want to hit it first or you want me to go? All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex. I use the pronoun she, her, hers. And I'm calling right now from the land of the Chumash and the Tonga here in East LA, Boyle Heights, which is just a few blocks from our very forgotten, very lonely studio. We miss it every day, but we're figuring out how to keep things going. So normally what I do for Teatro Luna is just try to keep things alive. That's what I like to say. I have the title of co-artistic director. We're an ensemble-based theater, so we really don't think about the hierarchy in the terms of our titles. It's really for like the outside world to feel like they know what's going on. But yeah, I try to just keep it together. I really spend a lot of my time constantly thinking about adaptation and new structures and new ways forward. And most importantly, like I am the collaboration obsessed human in our ensemble who is constantly thinking about how can we make everything even more collaborative and maybe crazy making as possible. That's what I do. In terms of my outside life, I'm a facilitator. Predominantly, I do a lot of anti-oppression, healing-based, organizational change work. My heart is with supporting BIPOC theaters and BIPOC artists live through the trauma that is white supremacy and giving them some tools. But I also do work with some PWIs trying to upend this white supremacy situation. So yeah, that's what I do. Christina?
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. I'm Christina, Igaraividez, and no, I don't expect you to remember how to say my last name, so you can call me Christina at any point. I am a creative producer with Teatro Luna. I've been with Teatro Luna since, I think 2009 in Chicago, and have followed them everywhere they went, have been in and out at different levels. But I think in LA, I really re-solidified my role in the organization since my Chicago days, and have really been working alongside Alex and figuring out how we can continue to evolve and to just really go with the times and keep creating content and experiences that are relevant and that are needed and useful for the various communities that we all belong to. So anything from, impactful social media posts to live events. And yeah, it's been quite a ride. So I do that with Teatro Luna, and outside of that, I am a storytelling teacher. I teach at Second City right now, and I also work with Netflix on their social media specifically for their Latinx content and titles. And yeah, I have a 10+ year career in marketing and advertising to multicultural audiences. So I live and breathe everything that I stand for, and have been fortunate enough to do that as well. And so happy to hang out with you all today.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much again for being here. And I want to just say hi. We have Maya out there watching. Hi, Maya. Thank you. And so tell us about Teatro Luna, if people out there aren't familiar with it. I'd love to hear, about your programs and what you do, but also about where you came from and what drives you and what's the impetus behind the work that you do. And also for those of you out there, I would encourage you to learn more about this organization and follow them. I'm putting their website up on the screen, so that's the best way to get in touch with them. And I assume you probably have a mailing list and things that people can sign up for there if they're interested. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Can I just say, I'm such a nerd. I'm so dumb. Just seeing the website on the ticker, makes me happy. Why? I don't know, but it makes me so happy. Okay. So, oh man, there's just so many things that we could dive into. I think maybe the first place I'll just start with is we have a really tenuous, complicated relationship with thinking of ourselves as a theater. And I think this has been really it's been a couple of years that we've had this tug of war with ourselves on do we still really call ourselves a theater company? Do we feel that the American theater has made a home for us? Do we feel a part of this community? Or do we see perhaps more opportunities for women of color artists and Latina artists doing the same things we do in theater, but not calling it theater? So I don't know if that's an interesting, Christina and I talk about this a lot, so I'm going to just jump into that end of the pool. And I think the pandemic actually just compounded those questions for us, right? Brought them to the surface in new ways. We were already maybe in 2016, 2017, really thinking about as our aesthetic and our technical design work expanded and sophisticated for the stage work, it obviously drew us to thinking about digital media and the impact that it can have on more people, on scale. And we have a message. We're really passionate about our message, which is to break out of these norms that we've been really held prisoner by, to tell people they already have the tools that they need to become the artist, the entrepreneur, the thinker, the thought leader, the boss. And we're all constantly negotiating what is the best vehicle for that concept and how to provide tools for people. So we're still in that world thinking about it. So that started a couple years ago. And then in 2019, we got this amazing opportunity to do our first audiobook. And that really got us thinking about, okay, we got to think about this differently. We just got to think about it differently. And then the pandemic happened and everyone in the theater started to understand that other people, the general larger community, doesn't understand that theater is essential to our life. And they didn't realize, in my opinion, that they had done that themselves. The theater community did that. And we have to now undo it. And we think that maybe we have some ideas on how to do that. So I'll leave that there. I'll toss it to Christina if that's inspiring anything for you to talk about.
Well, I want to hear those ideas as soon as Christina talks.
No, go ahead.
No, either way.
Oh, well, no, what were we going to say about ideas?
Oh, I was just saying, I want to hear
referencing some of the ideas that we have that we're talking about, how do we make this idea of theater, but really performance, of storytelling, of truth telling, of digging deep into what you think and how you've been taught to think and breaking that apart. Part of that is really helping people understand that the tools of theater are really the tools of collaboration. And that, what does that mean? That's actually the tool of connection. And if we get everybody closer to embracing vulnerability, how is that going to change all aspects of how we're living, right? So we've started some of that in how we talk to our audience, just in our social media, as an example. We've tried different things in terms of how we build a play. How are we including other people in how we build a play? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we thought that doing social justice theater meant doing a play about social justice issues. No, it is about how are you activating action? How are you building partnerships? How are you actually planning, interrupting, and disrupting for change? And so I think it's that combination that we're really thinking about moving forward. How that manifests in actual programs or events, I'm going to let Christina talk about, but I'm going to pitch it to her in that I think it's our institutes. Our institutes is how we're seeing a way forward. Into a new audience, into building a new essentialism for the theater. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about either institute, Christina.
Yeah, so we created the Talking All Female Institute, which is really kind of spurred off of many things that we did with the whole idea of Talking All Female, that started as a solo show that ended up being a monthly storytelling show at our theater, at our studio space in Boyle Heights, where we literally just created a space for Latinas and women of color to just tell their story. And there's no rules, like there's no guidelines outside of, you know, whatever the theme of the evening inspires you to talk about, and that it should have a beginning, middle, and end. And we've always been, you know, we have several, I hate to call them like mottos, but like several things that we live by, right? And one of them is running towards failure, and whatever that means to you, right? And we provide space to run into failure and to just create for the sake of creating, because we believe everyone is an artist. And the other thing is really just being, I feel like sometimes we're just your like Latina best friend who you don't need us. Like, you don't need us, right? We're just here to remind you and to help you see all the things that you already have. We're not, in the sense of you creating this institute, was not created to tell you that you need us to succeed and survive. It's here to remind you that everything you ever needed, you already have inside of you. So we started creating these workshops around writing as a healing and creative practice, how to build your own creative practice and discipline, how to release your story out into the world through a 3-day workshop that was like once a week in January. And that was one of the first times we actually got really serious about, you know, having an organized kind of, it wasn't even like a Zoom or a webinar. It was both interactive, but you had like homework, and you also had like pre-work, you know, so it was kind of like a mini school, right? And it was really exciting for the people who took it. And we're building off of that audience to keep creating workshops like these and courses too, to just help our communities have more tools to be able to do literally anything they want to do. And that's what really, you know, we've been all about in when it comes to, you know, the work outside of traditional theater.
Now, can we, if there's people out here watching, those sound like fantastic opportunities, and can we participate from here?
Yes. Oh my gosh. People are coming from everywhere. All of our all of our programming right now is virtual. Like Alex mentioned, we haven't been able to be at our space in the last year. So I did want to include, I'll chat in here, our email list too, that helps people stay connected. But even if they follow us on Instagram and Facebook, like, we're always posting the next thing that we're up to. So literally you could come from anywhere and hang out with us. You know, we don't even like to call them like classes or courses, just like come like chill with us.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, so much of our work is really built on the concept of mutual aid. And whereas we're sharing what we have learned and honed over the last 20 years, we're also receiving new ideas, new expressions, keeping our finger kind of on the pulse of what's happening in people's lives, because that's what generates our work. That is so for us, it's like, it's not separate from the our building of a new show or our ideas for what's coming. And also this idea of going to the virtual world, we were already really using Zoom for the last 4 years to create work. So this feels like an extension. We're really excited that we're being forced into more live streaming. And so when things open up, we don't plan on easing up on the digital content. We're just going to be going even harder. And for a long time, we've been feeling like, what does the theater not understand? That this is how we reach people. This is how we grow audiences. You know, we toured for most of our existence. And so we were meeting people from all over the world and building relationships, but we didn't know how to sustain them totally. And so we knew that this was the next step for us to do that. And as much as we're dying to get back out there and tour and get on stage, like, we're not about to risk anybody's life to do that right now. And we're figuring out how are we going to continue this and do both things when the world opens up safely, healthily, without urgency. So, you know, for all of our ambitious ideas, we're also in a place of like, at least I'll speak from the I, like, how am I also letting go of needing to do it all now? And how are we going to live what we preach online, which is being gracious and generous with ourselves and taking the time to just learn a different tempo.
Yeah, you all feel, I feel like in a lot of ways you were ahead of the curve on finding ways to engage people remotely and to engage people in ways that are not just bringing them into a theater. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, we've all learned a lot about that. And I think we can continue to learn a lot from you and from each other.
That's it.
Yeah. And speaking of each other, I want to give a shout out to Karamia Theater. Speaking of other theaters that we've been privileged to connect more and more with over the course of the pandemic. So we love Teatro Visión and Teatro Luna, and we also love Karamia Theater. So thank you
so much. We love them so much. They have played host to us. They have played thought partner with us. And I can't wait to see that part of the family again. Yes. So many theaters across the country, teatros.
And if anyone out there is interested in Karamia, you can also, if you look on our website back through the past episodes of La Hora del Mitote, we also talked to Karamia a while ago, and it was fabulous having them on too. So let me ask you another thing. Alex, you, I think, mentioned something about the shared leadership model and how sort of your role as artistic director is primarily dictated by, the trying to get people to understand you in the system that we currently operate in versus the way that you actually operate. And, I think that idea of that commitment to shared leadership that I see at Teatro Luna is one of the things that I find really inspiring about your work. And I think I read, is it on your website, that you talk about collaboration as a radical political practice. And I think that's a really powerful way to think about it. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about this model of shared leadership and how it works, and how you got to it and how you sustain it.
Totally. It's constantly evolving, I think, which is what is the hardest thing about, even for ourselves, documenting that. We've been talking about this book for 5 years, but it's actually happening soon, because we're our own best guinea pig and our own best case study. And oh, Siri, I'm not talking to you. So, we were always an ensemble. I wasn't here in the early days. I joined the organization as an intern in 2006, 2007. But, an oral history has been passed down to me. I've been here long enough now to really kind of get a lay of the land. And I think with any ensemble, you'll see that it has any kind of longevity. There's always going to be a shift in the approach, in the ethos, in the how. And when I really was finally in a position after a couple of years of being here to start making decisions, let me just say I started with all the wrong ones. And I think really early on, I think that's where my obsession with failure came into, is because if I hadn't made all those wrong decisions, I don't know that I would be where I am in terms of understanding the dynamics of humans, the dynamics of actors and artists, and what's really required, right? So when I first came up in Teatro Luna, it was still an era where a lot of BIPOC theaters, small theaters, we actually thought it was a badge of honor. I don't want to say how little you could pay people, but like how much you could do with so little, right? And I think that's a really big change in the last decade that's taken place, where like that mindset, we're really eradicating it. But when I was coming up, that's what I was kind of trained under. And so it's been a decade of me trying to unlearn a lot that we have either internalized or have seen. So I've tried it all. We've tried it all. We've tried pods. We've tried leadership teams. We've tried ensemble and associate, like different levels of membership in the organization. In this past year, I think we've tried 2. We're going into a 3rd model now. So it sounds like a lot of change. It sounds like a lot of crazy, but there are certain things that don't change through all of that. And that is a deep respect for each other's ideas, a deep understanding that as a women's organization, especially as a femme-identified organization, we are going to have different phases of life. And in those different phases of life, we can do and offer different things. And I would say younger Alex would have gotten frustrated, been like, you don't believe in this, right? You know, all those toxic things of like, are you in or are you not, right? Like kind of mentality, like that is no longer here in this company, but it's taken a long time to understand that. It's taken a long time to understand, wow, if we're only serving age 20, mid-20s, late 20s artists, they're in their own cycle of coming in and even figuring out if they're going to stay in theater. Wow, this is why you need diversity of age range, of identities, because it takes a full kaleidoscope really to make something be sustainable. So that's just a couple. This is like I could talk about it for hours, but basically the shared leadership model means, of course, at the end of the day, there's somebody who has to be responsible for decision making. And there are certain decisions where we will take multiple meetings to arrive at, because it's like, no, we will get here by consensus. An example is like whether or not to keep the space through the pandemic has been a discussion at almost every single other meeting. It's taken 9 months to arrive somewhere. But that needed that time. There are other decisions that I totally feel comfortable making. And there are many decisions where I'm like, I'm not making it, you make it. You figure it out. What do you think we need? And that's also been a journey in really understanding there are people like me who want to be given all the options, and there are people who want guardrails and boundaries. And you got to cater to all folks to make a machine run. So that was a really long rant, but hopefully a little clarity was arrived at.
No, I loved it. And I think what you're saying about like running towards failure, or your willingness to try so many of these different, ways of operating, it's such a brave thing to do, but you're so right about how, fear of failure is never gonna, is a barrier to progress, right? And so I think it's so interesting too that you're saying you're willing to give the space that the decisions need to be made collaboratively, and yet at the same time you're able to make these changes to your operations so quickly, because I think most organizations, would not know how to try so many different models in, just 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not naive. I think there's a reason why we're able to be that nimble is scale. So we've ran the range in budget to like just under 500,000 to some years where we're at $50,000. So we've been everywhere in that range. And there are certain things you can do when you're that small and nimble that you can't do when you're a larger organization. With that being said, like, is that actually true? Because you hear about some amazing, huge corporations making huge, massive cultural change when innovation is centered, when you're not centering whiteness in the sense that you feel you have to control everything and micromanage everything. So at first it was very hard to make change because we didn't do it. You used to do it that way, right? Like that comes up a lot. But when we started to build the organization to change, right? When we started and we've operated venues, we've not operated venues, we've had offices, we've not had offices. And I think that in combination with touring and being able to pack up and live anywhere and being remote and like all of that has helped us. But if I really boil it down, there were specific decisions that were made to be able to become that nimble, right? It has to be a choice.
Christina, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I think Alex said it all.
She's like, move on, move on.
It's awesome. Well, let me, so real quick, anyone, if out there, if you're just joining us, you're watching Teatro Vision's weekly La Hora del Mitote, and we're here with members of Teatro Luna West, which is an ensemble of Latinx and women of color, artists, organizers, scholars, agitators, creatives, teatristas, dreamers, and thinkers. And we love to have you join the conversation. So if you have questions that you want to ask, or comments that you want to add, to anything that any of us are saying, please do. We love that. You can chat them in the Facebook chat or the YouTube chat, and we would be happy to respond to whatever your questions or thoughts are. So with that, let me ask you another question. Another thing that I find is really interesting about the way I've seen Teatro Luna articulate your work is that you often describe it as healing. And so I would love to hear more about your thoughts about that, how you achieve that, why that's an important part of your work.
Christina, you got to take it. They're tired of me talking.
No, they're not.
I'm not, but
Gosh, I don't even know where to start with that. Just because personally, like I never have identified myself as someone who helps people heal, but I realize that is all I want to do. A majority of the time, I cannot find my own inner peace without trying to help others in the process. And I think I just feel like a lot of our radical ideas and things that we live by as an organization are not radical. I feel like half the time, and not even just us, anyone who really just wants the best for the greater good should not be considered radical. We had a post that was like one of our most high performing posts on Instagram that literally just said, what was it? Community
care. Mm-hmm.
Yes, community care over self-care, always. And it was considered radical because, everyone out there is all about self-care and how take care of yourself first. You can't, pour from an empty cup, which, yes, of course, we all agree with that. We're not saying, burn out and go help other people. But we're working under the notion that if you are at that level and willing and able to be able to help your community first, then you should, right? And that's just, I think that's all we really mean by healing, is just really helping and uplift all the communities that we are a part of, and using the tools of creativity to do that, because sometimes that's all you have is your imagination, right? Is your ability to write a sentence, to write a paragraph, right? To a voice note, an opinion, a thought, right? An idea, and really just reaffirming that your ideals, your notions, your imagination are what are really going to change the world. Because if you could change and grow in yourself, then you are helping changing the world. And we know that we can't do everything at once, and we get so overwhelmed. It's impossible not to get, as an organization, not to get overwhelmed with the everyday violence, the everyday stressors, especially on BIPOC communities, that we just can't understand sometimes, and how do we combat that, right? How do we make sure that this doesn't tear us down so much that we can't keep showcasing our genius, right? Our pure genius that we have to contribute to the world, and that is necessary for the world to continue on and to come to a better place, right? That can't happen without, BIPOC folks. Like, it just cannot. It can't. And we just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to do our part to help people continue on, despite everything that's happening to us.
And I think so much of that, right? So like none of it comes from like we're these healed woke gurus and we're going to help you, right? Like, it's not that. It's actually the ethos about it is like, we are all pretty much doing theater or telling stories or doing some kind of connectivity engagement because it heals us. And if we can come from that place, and if then we can share what we've learned, that is also healing, right? So not just putting up our worst, saddest, most traumatized stories on stage for you, that's not what's going to heal you. But what's going to heal you is perhaps entering a space where you are seen, where you're visible, where you don't have to explain yourself, where you can just be. And you can also just be joyful and amazing. Like, we can both be like anti-racist, radical, like end white supremacy folks, and also have a really good effing time, right? So I think when we think about healing, it's because laughter is healing, it's because stories are healing, because connecting to yourself is healing, because our practice, what we share in our classes and in our work, is also about reconnecting the mind and the body. And theater is what a vehicle to do that. But what you see often, I'm just going to name it, in white theater, you see a lot of intellectualized theater. You see a lot of theater that is actually just recreating what you like, the realism. Like, we really are not into the realism. I mean, I'll take it some days, right? Maybe on a Sunday, but get back to like big theatrics, right? So I was revisiting, oh man, who was I reading? And they were like, even when theater is dead, I'll still be a theater artist. And they're like, and what makes theater is that it's bigger than life. I am bigger than life. And I was just very, I think it was Suzuki. And I was just like, yeah. So in this moment where we were all questioning, is theater dead? Like, I was more a theater artist in this moment, not doing theater, because I understood what my purpose was, what Luna's purpose was to keep the idea that a women of color Latinx ensemble could stay alive in the pandemic. Actually, that was something we had to stay alive in this moment. And we had to keep thinking, and we had to keep celebrating, and we also had to keep disrupting, especially as this self-care industry blows up and wreaks havoc on us and what we think care for ourselves is. Like, we decided to be bolder in talking about what self-care might actually look like, and how it's intrinsically linked to community care.
Wow. Thank you. I love that. So you've mentioned, sort of being theater artists and professional theater artists, and also, community. Clearly, community is very involved in creating the work that you do, right? And that's something that we've been trying to do more and more of at Teatro Visión, as well is to make the communities that we're working in and that we're serving and that we are of creative collaborators and creative creators of the work that we're doing. So yeah, I mean, I think, do you have any insight about how that works at your company, and how you do that, how you make a space where professional artists and community members who, as I think you're saying really powerfully, are also artists. How do you bring those together and build work together in that way?
Yeah, I think we're always going to be trying to find new ways to do that. I don't know that I feel like we've arrived at a singular answer necessarily. With us, each project is so different. And so, for example, when we do an interview-based project, it's really clear in what ways are we working with a community that are not going to be extractive. So it might look like building with a community in terms of words and concepts and images can be a vehicle. It can look like actually having community performers. But I would say we really almost make no distinction between community performers and professional performers. It's like it's a very interesting nebulous thing for us, right? So I don't, at least in my tenure, we've never had a show that was like only these like equity artists and never other kinds of artists in the mix. So we really try to not make a black and white line about it. And we're always trying to figure out new avenues to integrate. I think there are moments in our history where we might have been extractive and we've learned not to do, like, how do you learn not to do that? How do you learn to, I think there was a big turning point 10 years ago and we were like, okay, we're no longer making art for the white gaze. We're making art for our own gaze. And what is that going to mean? And when we say our own gaze, what do we mean? Because obviously Latinidad is not a monolith and people of color are not a monolith. And so when we realized we needed to make work for the people who were making the work, if they weren't making the work, then I think we became real crystal clear on a lot more, if that makes sense. And so if the ensemble wasn't reflective of the community, that's where we run into issues. But if the ensemble is reflective of the community that it's living in, then we can make it all work ethically. So, you know, we had a lot of concerns when we first came to Boyle Heights. It's a city that's, it's a neighborhood that's being gentrified, has a long history of police violence, of police raids, of you name it. Also a history of amazing art and activism. And we knew the reality that artists are also part of the gentrification problem. It's a bit, you know, and so we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We have to do this really carefully. Luckily, we were invited in by another theater that had been here historically doing amazing work. Casa 0101. So that was somewhat of a bridge, but we're still figuring out, how do you come into a neighborhood? How do you come into like a place? And we definitely couldn't move forward as an ensemble without ensemble members that were from here, right? So we're still, I don't know how to answer your question totally any more than that, other than like we're constantly learning and trying and adapting. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah.
And I would think the ensemble model facilitates that too, right? Because it is inherently a practice that is more open to. That's right.
Others. To more ideas and to other stuff. It can also fall into groupthink. It can also fall into becoming its own gatekeeper, right? Like there are other kind of drawbacks to the whole situation, but their ensembles can be really toxic. Like you can have toxic leadership. You can have all kinds of stuff can happen in any structure. You have to be vigilant. I think what has kept us coming back into alignment, especially in these last 5 years, mistakes and all, we make mistakes, you learn, is a real commitment to self-reflection, consistent assessment, and consistently putting new dreams on the table. I think part of constantly changing also forces us to constantly dream new things. So like we have dreams that we haven't even accomplished from 10 years ago, but we're not holding on to them. Like we're constantly letting new things in. And I think that also helps us. It just helps us stay grounded. And we listen a lot. We partner a lot, not just on plays, but on programming. And we're really involved in the national conversation for BIPOC theater, for community-based theater, for ensemble theater. So like, we're not these like little people in a little bubble. We're really out there listening to what's happening and connecting the everyday to the political and the political to the everyday, right? Like that it's a constant exchange of that. And I think that's kept our work moving forward. I think the other thing is we learn not just from other ensembles in this country, but we learn from international artists, from international thinkers. And we're not scared to learn from other theater makers and really listen. And not just theater makers, like we're actually super inspired by a lot of Black writers, a lot of like Sonia Renee Taylor, who has a book on The Body Is Not an Apology, right? So like so much of our ethos can also come from somebody who's talking about body positivity and radical self-love of the body. We can be inspired on how to move in this world from people who really care about the environment and are talking about how are they offering community aid and mutual aid, right? So I think if the inspiration is coming from so many places, you're going to find a path. Where if we get stuck is when we're like, oh, what about that idea from last year or this thing that we've always done? We got to keep doing it. That is where we run into issues, that we start not seeing the impact of the work or things get cloudy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like just on a personal note too, is when you become involved in, even from an outer circle or orbit of community-based leadership, it also helps you kind of let go of the shame and guilt of not pursuing things that you previously deemed important or
brilliance right there. Brilliance. Say that again, Christina.
or goals that you had for yourself, that I will be successful when, and really just allows you to accept that you are an ever evolving human being. You don't stop evolving at any age, and you are allowed to change what is important to you as you change as a person, right? And accepting that, and that is something that's really hard to do, I think, especially in this country, to be able to say, you know what, this actually isn't for me. I actually find more joy in doing something that's half the salary that I'm at now, that's making an impact to maybe a smaller group of people versus contributing to a problem that's affecting millions of people, right? And that has really just allowed me to be so comfortable in that I relish, right? That is like the last problem I have now in my life, So I think in just and anyone who becomes a part of any of our programming or attends any of our workshops, that's a part of our teaching and everything that we do, right? Is letting go of that ideal, that person I was 12 hours ago, 1 hour ago, right? And holding on to what continuously brings you joy and being okay with that transforming into other things as you go along. And drop my.
It was a drop mic moment. Thank you.
I can't go too long without making a joke. Just FYI. This is probably the longest I've ever gone without being ridiculous.
Well, don't hold back on our account. I feel like this is going to make my next question really interesting, because a question that I often ask guests is, about your looking to the future of your organization. What are your hopes and what are your fears? And I think that's a really interesting question in the context of everything that you just said about, willingness to let go of what your hopes have been in the past. And so I would love to hear how you do think about, the future, given this, I think really impressive, willingness to, let go of things that have been or things that you have hoped for and no longer are, so what are your thoughts on what you would hope for the future, or what you're afraid of in the future?
I don't know. I struggle with this question so much, because the things I'm afraid of keep changing. And we're still in the pandemic moment. So it is hard to think about what will they be. I just feel forever changed by this thing. And I feel so clear about not going back into the before times, even though I miss things from the before times. So some things that I like, maybe one of my oldest dreams for the company is so simple and dumb, probably going to sound to people, is like the moment we're have the capacity to provide health insurance to every single person that works with us, no matter the level that they work with us at, like I will feel like we have arrived and that we are living our values, you know, like it's so dumb. So some things are really small or like very specific like that to me. And other things are much, much bigger. You know, we still have dreams of operating in multiple cities so that there's multiple access points to the work, and so that we're very deeply embedded in multiple communities, especially when we think about it from the Latinx perspective, right? We come in all colors, we come in all languages, we come in all backgrounds and ethnicities, but even regionally, just regionally in the United States, our issues and our challenges are different. And so we never, ever wanted to be like a national Latinx company that was only one way or like only serving one type. And especially in this racial reckoning, even more so, like obviously we're always aware of anti-Blackness in the community, and so much of our work wanted to speak against that. But now it's like, if that is not priority forever for this company, we're not doing it right. Right. So I don't know. I can say this, what we're no longer scared of is having no money, because we've been there and we've done it. And guess what? Teatro Luna still lives. It is an idea more than a bank account, more than a place, more than a whatever. It is the love that we have cultivated amongst our members. So I'm really excited to just like, if we can just keep what's working and build more financial kind of, I don't want to say security, because I'm not looking for financial security. I'm looking for us to expand the ways in which we can count on money, because we were a touring company. And when that was out for us, we were like, oh, wow, what are we going to do? We thought we were so innovative, not needing to live on grants and stuff. Honey, another thing coming. So I never want to be in that position again. And I want to build other models that other theaters can build more sustainability from. And I think that is these institutes. I think it's this other media. I think it's thinking about shows that you don't close after 4 weeks after you just spent half your budget doing. Like, what is that? Like, it's so wasteful. Like, so much of what we do in the theater is so wasteful. So those are things I'm excited about. And I'm excited about making collaboration top of mind for everybody all the time. We will be successful when we get there as well. When we realize that the tools for collaboration in the theater can literally be our liberation on all other fronts. Rant over, Christina.
Let me just say, by the way, is that your dream to offer health insurance, I don't think that's silly at all. I would be ecstatic if I could do that as well. So I totally relate to that for sure.
Yeah, my dreams are her dreams too. I don't know. I don't think I have fears with what we can do more than what I just want everyone to look out for each other. Like, we cannot keep going in this direction. When Alex was talking about the pandemic, I think back about the last major pandemic we had 100 years ago in 1918 lasted 2 years without the medical advances that we have today, right? We're on our way to 2 years with everything we have. And why is that? Because nobody wanted to cooperate, right? I mean, for so many reasons, but it's like we saw, our ugliest, reflection of ourselves in this past year. That, like you said, when you were talking about theater, it didn't need to be that way, right? Like, it was not sustainable either in the ways that we went about things, and not to make it about.
No, but listen, we weren't able to tell, or the government, not the government, the people on the ground who wanted people to wear masks were not able to tell that story clear enough about our humanity. That concerns me. Yeah. Like, deeply, deeply concerns me. Again, with we need the tools to communicate our ideas in a different way.
Yeah.
And yeah, imagine if our government ran as an ensemble practice. I don't know. Who would we be centering? I'm just saying, radical experiment. What would happen? What would
Yes.
happen? I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, I do have more dreams of continuing and building on the programming that we have to really establish our institutions that we just started, and just to create more of what we've been doing at a larger scale, and be able to have more hands on deck, on board, to be able to just distribute more widely. I think that's all I can really ask for.
That's right. I think who doesn't want more resources to do work that matters, right? Absolutely. But, I think if I could add one more thing is like, we are so excited to continue to expand who we're working with as artists. We want to work with more visual artists. We want to work with more, we just want to keep expanding the type of creative we work with. And I think we're going to be pushing forward the kind of work we make by doing that, right? So much of the move to LA was about that, was about having access to other kinds of artists that are performing highly in their field, but also want to play in our world, right? And how can we play in other worlds? How do we keep building on these audio projects and then take them to what's the next version of audio projects in this world? I don't know, but it could be very exciting.
Real quick, just want to say hi to Cristal, who's out there watching. Who's an amazing artist herself, who is, I don't know if you have met her or worked with her, but she's a fantastic artist who works with us so good. So thank you for watching, Cristal. It's good to see you. Okay, so we have a little less than 10 minutes, hopefully, until the end of the hour. I'm going to make one more offer for those of you out there watching. If you have questions or comments that you want to add, please let us know. And while you're doing that, if you would like to, I want to ask Alex and Christina to just go through the list of, the projects that you have happening now that people here could watch. I mean, you've mentioned your institute, you've mentioned your audio book. I'm sure there are other things too, right? So just for people out there watching, if they want to see more about what you do or they want to get involved, what are the ways that they can do that, and how do they find you? And I'm going to put your website up again to remind people about that too.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to drop a bunch of links. I'm just going to say on our link tree on our Instagram is a bunch of links of things I'm going to name. So the first thing I want to say is we have a monthly storytelling series called Talking About Female Live Storytelling Sessions. I think we're on the number 7 for season 4. And the theme is Hatch. That's coming up this coming month. But there's always a live form where you can submit yourself to be a storyteller. And I want to hear from all of you. Doesn't matter that you don't think you're a storyteller. Doesn't matter if you've never told a story before. That's what we're here for, is to help you. And and you can do it from anywhere. You could do it from anywhere. Just come into our Luna Zoom room and get to work with other storytellers, work on a story, and just feel the love in our room. So that's the number one thing. Christina runs that program. And it's just all around good times. We have auditions right now. So video submissions for an audition. We're doing a 3-way partnership with Urban Theater Company in Chicago and Teatro Milagro in Portland, Oregon. We're working on Jasmine Mendez's play called City Without Altar. It's a period piece taking place in the Dominican Republic and Haiti during the massacre. And auditions are open through April 1st. We want to see and hear from you. There's also a call for directors for that piece. So there's kind of a lot of ways to get involved. We have our Devising Institute, which is opening next month. It has a 3-part series. For those of you who have felt stuck in a tight home or in a tight office, or just wanting to have tools to reimagine how to engage in your space. This is for my designers out there. This is for all the people who want to think about topography and architecture in different ways. The series starts there. Then it goes into a mindful body reconnection moment. And then the third is collaboration and meaning making in digital spaces. So that's coming your way April and May. And Christina, I know we have more, but that's what's on top of mind.
Yeah, when we have a free writing prompt program I will call it.
Maya coming through with the links.
Yes. Thank you, Maya. On Instagram and Facebook called Write With Us, where we do a guided writing prompt session that's no more than 30 minutes usually, and once in the morning, once in the evening, and that is completely free on our social media. So if you follow us, we're at Teatro Luna on Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook we're at Teatro Luna Ensemble. And and I shared this live too, so you're in the right place if you see this live. So come on out, like and follow, and we'll see you on the live.
That's right. And we'll get back to showmaking, official showmaking, not until the fall. We go back into a development process for 2 shows that were left unfinished. And we'll be looking for artists, designers, performers, and devisers to come on board for that. Those projects are Lovesick and The Times, which will complete our trilogy on the war against women. So very excited for... I just I can't, even though it's going to start digitally, to be back in the rehearsal room in that way is going to be so exciting.
Maya's coming through with more links for you too.
More links. Oh, and my favorite link, I do have to drop it. I know it came out in 2019, but our audiobook, it's available. If you're on Audible, if you're already a member, it's free because it's an Audible original, okay? Otherwise, it's a little expensive. The money doesn't go to us, so you do what you want. But that's bit.ly/TWF audiobook, and it's 25 solo performances by Latinas from around the world on stories of risk and resilience. And I just have to say, I revisited it the other day, tears, because the stories are life affirming, just purely life affirming. So if you need a moment while you're still at home, check it out.
And there's the link.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Yeah, of course. Now I need to go look for that because I am an Audible member, so now I need to go get it.
Yes. And thank you, Maya, for sticking around.
I know, Maya's been great here.
Additional associate producer of the internet's over there.
I love it. I love how half her profile pic is her dog.
I was going to say, it's actually not Maya. It's Sirius, the dog, dropping these links here for us all.
Yeah, well, they're doing a great job. Anything else? Anything else you want to tell our viewers before we say goodnight?
Only that we love the Bay Area. We've gotten to perform there 3 different times in our history. We can't wait to be back. And anytime y'all want to come down and do a show here in LA, you let us know, okay? In the later times. Times.
Yeah, thank you, Teatro Visión, for providing a platform for us, which just always helps us. We're not as good. For all the talk that we talk, we're not as good as talking about self-promoters. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you for getting us out there and helping us spread the message of all the things we're up to, because I don't think enough people know everything we do. And this was just such a great opportunity to get more people to know that we're here for y'all. We are here.
So this is why we need each other, right? You can.
Yes.
I'll promote you. You promote us. We all.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. This was super interesting and super fun, and I really appreciate you talking to us. And I really appreciate all of you who are out there watching and commenting for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. And we're here, remember, every Friday at 7 p.m. for La Hora del Mitote. So hopefully we will see some of you back here next week at the same time in the same Facebook and YouTube places. Thank you so much.